Sustainability goes beyond compliance. It is now a business imperative. And when you bring together the right information and engage the right stakeholders, it can create significant value across the enterprise. A smarter, data-driven approach to sustainability helps deliver the focused insights you need to minimize environmental impact and enhance the reputation of your business.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Realcomm Live. So good to be with you today. I got another great show lined up. As you know, we like to make sure our conversations on real estate technology, prop tech, CRE tech, whatever we're going to call it, we want to make sure that our conversations are global. And we've got an incredibly a great network around the world that helps us keep up with innovation. And it's not just the technology we keep up with, but we like to keep an eye on how people are actually executing on the adoption. Different cultures, different processes, different mindsets. And this week, we are coming at this from a perspective of Europe. So live from Europe, we're going to jump across the pond and speak with two, what I call friends at this point. I've known Andrew for probably 20 years and Jim for maybe 10, maybe 12, but I knew Jim's dad for 30. So these relationships go way back. So Andrew Waller, partner of Remit Consulting, and Jim McHale, CEO and founder of Memoori. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about CRE tech and innovation in the European Union. We're going to start London, go UK, and then we're going to go all the way out to the European Union. And frankly, we could take an hour to talk about this, if not more. We're going to have 18 minutes. So let's bring these guys on and get started with our conversation. Gentlemen, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
It is so good.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Even though if not in person. Andrew, I think the last time I saw you was in Nashville, correct?
In Nashville, yeah, absolutely, fantastic.
2 years ago, 3 years ago. Oh. well, hopefully we can convince you guys to come across the pond. We got a great event coming up in Orlando, and I feel like we're kind of getting back to normal, somewhat of a normal. So let's dive right in. Since we've got you, on the show, you're there, we're here. We read news, we watch news stories, but you really don't ever understand what's going on per se. And I know we're hoping COVID is in the rearview mirror, but why don't we start with COVID? Jim, 30 seconds, quick. How's life where you are? Is it getting back to normal? What does the office look like? And then Andrew, weigh in on as well.
We're based in Scandinavia here. I think the thing with Europe, of course, is that different countries dealt with this issue quite differently, and certainly, I think where I am in Sweden, it was dealt with certainly differently than a lot of European countries. But no, I think that since February, restrictions have been lifted. Speaking to office owners and operators here, that they're definitely seeing some recovery, and just anecdotally looking around, you're seeing a lot more people now in the business districts.
So are you going into the office and then going out to dinner after work? Is it getting to be that normal?
Absolutely, yeah. That's going on now. Yeah.
Good. Andrew, how about in your neck of the woods?
In London, pretty much the same. It's very crowded, and certainly all restrictions are off next week. Pretty much, people are dealing with it as if they don't have any restrictions. There are a few people, probably 20-30% of people are still wearing masks in crowded places, and given that COVID is still pretty prevalent in society, there's lots of people still have it and they're testing positive. But at the same time, it's milder now, so that's good. And I think the big change is how people are using space. I think a lot of people are going into London. I'm not sure that they're all going back to the office. We keep track of the numbers. We get numbers from all the big portfolios, and we're back up to 30% on the key days during the week: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Now that probably equates to about 35-40% of what it was compared with what it was before. Yep. But I think people are going in and having meetings. I think they're in the coffee shops, they're in the restaurants, They're not necessarily using the offices in the way that they used to.
And over here, we're hearing the word hybrid a lot. And what is the most interesting thing is we're having three different opinions on this. We have the owner operators who say everybody back to the office 5 days a week because we're in the real estate business. We have their tenants, the corporations, saying, let's try this hybrid thing 2-3 days. And the tenants' employees who are really driving all this saying, we want absolute flexibility. Yeah, and that might mean 2 days or 3 days in the office. We're not sure. We want a coffee shop to act as our office one day. So are you hearing that in your world? I mean, the hybrid mobility, work anywhere, any place in a real meaningful way. Jim, you want to start?
I think you described it very well. I wouldn't describe it any differently than that here in Europe. That's what I hear from people, and that's I think our experience at the moment. Yeah.
Andrew?
I don't think anybody knows yet. I think we're seeing a big rush back into offices because people are just desperate to meet people and have something of the relationships they used to. Funnily enough, it's the youngsters in our team who really want to be in the offices every day. People with a house in the country, they want at least 2 or 3 days working where they can get some work done. And I think people are adapting. But I think that the people who are using it well are using the way that Teams and Zoom has come on in the last 2 years is phenomenal. I remember talking to you, Jim, and Skype was almost unusable across the pond.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, and wait till you see what's coming. I mean, we push Teams we now produce events using just Teams, and we've learned all sorts of tricks of the trade and some of the new things coming, which we're going to showcase at the conference. I mean, we are going to take this whole concept of immersive experience to another level, trying to demonstrate to owners of office buildings, retail, mixed use, residential, how this is going to work. And basically it means, being able to push a button and jump into a physical/virtual metaverse, half office, half online kind of experience. It's still early, but to me, I'm getting more clarity every day on what this next thing's going to look like, which is kind of exciting.
I think to go to what you were saying earlier, I mean, big change for us in the last month is that clients are now asking us to go into real physical workshops with them. And we've just got a team this week in Paris working, ironically, on a digitization project for one of the big funds. And but they want to meet face to face. They've even got flip charts rather than using the screens. I'm going to agree to disagree because when you see an immersive environment with a virtual war room and the information that can be shared, I mean, we've seen some of these war rooms where quants are sitting behind the executives as they're listening to the conversations, they're bringing up aerials, they're bringing up floor plans. The executives don't even need to call for the information because these people are trained to read their mind and then present the information. We're all visual learners. And all it does is it gets smart people smarter faster. So there is a place for flip charts. Don't get me wrong, but we got to go beyond that. I think we're getting there, and I think that that just illustrates that there is this swing back to real meetings with real people and real paper. But you're not going to get rid of this hybrid approach. You're actually going to benefit from the stuff that's been developed in the last 2 years.
And the big question, and I'd like to have you back on maybe after the conference, that everybody's asking is, what is occupancy utilization really going to be, and how is that going to impact the owner-operator's ability to spend money on technology and innovation? We were talking about that a little bit before we started. We're in a weird place, and speaking of weird, let's pivot to another crazy topic. We're kind of watching a war take place, right? So we just finally got through COVID, and everybody's taking a deep breath, and God bless those people in Ukraine. What happened, it is happening to them, is just absolutely unbelievable. I know how we feel here, kind of helpless, right? I mean, at a human level, I feel like I want to do more, but what's the sentiment in Europe about what's going on? You guys are obviously much closer to it. Is it impacting daily lives and business? Jim, you want to start?
I get a sense that it's impacting daily lives and business, but of course it's like, it's right on the doorstep. I mean, literally, hour and a half, 2 hour flight away. So, it really is, makes it much more real. So, that's definitely, I think that's how it feels.
Andrew?
I think Jim's absolutely right. The fact that it is so close, and of course you've now got 24/7 live reporting of everything that's going on. It seems that much closer than the Croatia-Serbian conflict a few years ago. And I think there's just this wave of uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen next. It goes quiet, then something happens. But it's really upsetting the investment markets. It's upsetting all of the supply chains, the speculation on all the commodities. It's difficult to know. Having said that, we're carrying on with our digitalization projects just in the same way as we all are, because life goes on. But the big macro stuff, that's going to take some time to play out.
So I want to get this topic in before the break. ESG, right? Big topic. We were chatting again before the conversation. This is my third rodeo, I think, on E of ESG, the energy one. I mean, literally, Realcomm was somewhat founded on the idea that I wanted to get building owners to turn the lights off at 3 o'clock in the morning of their 50-story buildings, right? Mm-hmm. My mom always taught me, turn off the lights when you're not in the room. And it's stuck, okay? And we went to Asia and specifically South Korea, and we saw, lights that go off the minute you walk out of the room, and in office towers, not just in bathrooms or anything. So when you look at energy, which is playing a major role in this dispute, it's going to shift global geopolitics with Russia and oil and especially you guys in Europe. Everybody's focusing on driving because we do it every day, but nobody's focusing really on us, the buildings, which are 40 to 45% of the average daily energy spent, right? Andrew, you've been at this a long time, and then I'm going to pivot to Jim, who's got the gears and understands the things that we could bring our energy usage down. Why is there such a disconnect? And then if you could reference that survey that you talked about a little bit earlier.
Sorry,
start with Andrew. We can start with Andrew. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So I think that a couple of things at play. Firstly, is that we've all been working from home for 2 years, and so the domestic side of things is influencing what we see. And I'll give you an idea. My energy bill for my house has doubled in the last 6 months. Yeah. So that means that I'm looking there. You expand that out to the commercial market, which didn't have the protection that the domestic market had, and this is a really big thing. So I think from one point of view, this is a really good thing for ESG, because we're going to put many more sensors in. We're going to start investing in buildings. We're going to start retrofitting, and banks are going to find a way to fund it. Having said that, you hear the government saying, well, we're going to have to open up oil fields in the North Sea again.
Right. So, right. And I'm as green as they come. Honestly, Realcomm was founded on bringing efficiency and sustainability. That's one of the things I was thinking about 25 years ago. But we cannot go to a low voltage or a sustainable energy source overnight. It's going to take time, right? So Jim, in New York City, and then I'm going to ask a broad question and get hopefully a detailed answer. During the pandemic, New York City, less than 10% occupied, utilized through let's call it 2021. Yet their energy bills did not budge or go down one bit. And what we heard from all these owners was, my building wasn't equipped. I had to keep it operational. By the language in my leases, I'm required. So empty buildings, same energy spent. First question, does that make any sense to you whatsoever in a world that's being now jockeyed by energy reliance? And then number two, in your smart building world, how easy of a fix is this?
Well, look, I mean, of course, it makes no sense at all, does it? We should have at least the capability to, put systems, if we face some, different circumstances like that, we should be able to have the flexibility to be able to deal with that in terms of what energy we use. And obviously the technology piece is still complicated. There's still such a mix of buildings of different ages with different types of equipment and at different stages of being, in quotation marks, smart. And that's, I think, the struggle. I think for a lot of companies that own, portfolios of property, it's not all of their buildings are up to the same standard or can be managed in the same way. Right. But there is, of course, the technology to solve these problems, but it's by no means easy still, and we need to make it easier.
And it's not just the technology that isn't easy, it's the structure of that building. In a multi-tenant building, everybody takes responsibility for their own suites and builds them out and has their own needs, requirements, likes, dislikes. So, when you're looking at that tall building in downtown London, at 3 o'clock in the morning and 3/4 of the lights are on, is that something that the building owner, can mandate on those tenants? I mean, and so there's this organizational challenge. But given the importance of ESG, specifically E, and the crisis we're under right now with, energy playing a major role in this war dispute that we're seeing between Ukraine and Russia, I'm hoping that something good comes out of it, in that we really fast track the energy part of this conversation, because we're some of the biggest culprits. The buildings are the biggest culprits. All right, let's take a brief break, and then what we're going to do when we come back, we're going to talk specifically about prop tech, the momentum that they're seeing in Europe. Are people still investing? Are they buying? Or does this craziness we're experiencing putting everything on pause? So we'll be right back and continue the conversation. All right. Two guys that, as far as Europe is concerned, I consider you top of your games on the follow that can address this next question. So let's go back to Nashville, 2019. Since 2009, a lot of investment in new companies, prop tech. Every 5 million in a new idea, hundreds, some would say thousands of companies starting up. A lot of momentum, money's still getting thrown at it. The pandemic hits. We're having to figure out how to stay healthy for 3-4 months and get our sea legs kind of oriented. And then midway, some people are saying we're going to use this as an opportunity to really digitize and do all those things that we didn't do before. And others just sat there and said, we're going to wait it out and see what happens. Okay, so with that being said, let's start with Andrew. In the UK or Europe more in general, is the prop tech momentum the same as 2019? The up, meaning more interest, not just in the ideas, but in the adoption? Or are you seeing a slight pause and a slowdown? Andrew, want to give us your feedback?
What a huge question. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, we're all asking them.
Okay. I think the prop tech market goes on unhindered. There are phases to it. There are ups and downs. I think what we're seeing is the private equity are going in and building platforms and trying to gather solutions around and spending a lot of time on that, in particular industry sectors. So maybe the solutions don't look the same sort of thing, but they provide an answer to similar sort of problems. I think the customers are actually looking at it from a different angle. I think they
building owners or tenants?
For building owners,
okay.
And particularly the funds that are funding them. And I think what they're really focusing on, it's customers, and it's the S of ESG now. Energy, most of the people have actually done quite a lot of that work, and they say they haven't adopted all the technology they can, but that's coming. But the bit that's really the gap in the market here is social and particularly community.
Yeah.
So we've just been working on a very, very large new City of London building, 1 million square feet. Huge amount of time has gone into integrating that into the community in whatever format there.
Would you call that the experience side of the conversation?
Yeah, exactly. And so, and the whole thing about placemaking. So technology that helps roll that out is actually getting looked at a lot more. It's about understanding where the customers go, what they do, how they work. And again,
so we know the money's still flowing into PropTech, which is amazing. It's going on 13 years now, right? Where there's an endless flow of cash. Are you seeing, obviously we're just coming out of a pandemic and then the potential of a war. Are you seeing the uptick in adoption? Or, I mean, the companies keep rolling in, but are people buying and installing this technology at a rate the same, less, or greater than 2019?
Slightly more, but there is this concerns, anxiety about smaller companies. I think as we see the new ideas, the innovation being adopted by the larger companies, they feel a little bit safer about doing that.
So, Jim, you're more on the smart building side. So, are projects going ahead faster than before, the same, or less?
I mean, I can talk from. I mean, mention investment. I mean, from our records, what we counted, 2021 was a record year, and not even close, right? Like, I don't know if that's going to continue this year. My sense is probably not, but I don't think it's going to fall off a cliff by any stretch of the imagination. But we just completed some work on looking at what we term digital workplace, and it's really a fast-growing market. I mean, we're looking at around 20% growth in sales of those.
So is that more front of the house than back of the house?
Yes, yeah. So, for example, the workplace management, and then combining that with more of the sort of what have been those sort of more point IoT solutions, like with occupancy analytics, and then bringing in, of course, something we haven't mentioned yet, experience.
Right.
That's big. We've seen a lot of companies take that on and really use it to good advantage.
So given though that the investment inflows 2021 record year, adoption, as both of you know, in our industry is slow. We're going on 13 years of this investment cycle. How patient are investors going to be? Is the take up, the adoption going to satisfy them? I mean, I heard 5 years, and I'm hearing, well, we're looking for 10-year returns, and I even heard 15 years. In my world, at least, in tech for 35 years, you better show me something in 18 to 36 months. Now we're talking 5 to 10 years and even beyond that. I mean, what's the general attitude of PropTech investors and companies as far as the market right now? Andrew, do you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I think they're still looking to turn them around as quickly as possible, but I think there's a realism that actually, we are looking at industry change, and the industry hasn't changed that much in the last 200 years. I think that's a bit of a shock to a lot of investors new to the market. I think there's also a difference between the US and the UK. A lot of time I spend with UK asset managers and fund managers who have either joint ventures or they're owned by a US REIT, for example, and there's a real mismatch of expectations there.
Yes.
Because the markets are different. And I think the US has actually accelerated on digitization far faster than Europe. It's catching up, and there's a lot of good ideas here. But even when the good ideas come out of Europe, there is still a time to get some sort of understanding between the two groups.
Right. Jim, you want to add on to that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the level of funding is not the same. We're not on the same level as the US. That's clear. But I would say, and again, I totally agree. Like, it's super interesting about what expectations are around, return for these sorts of companies they've invested in. But we're seeing some really interesting exits, and they, a company last year, access control business, that achieved really good exit for their investors.
So the exit
know,
worked, but is the long-term viability of the business with the projections that gave them that exit, is it gonna be real, or is it gonna fall short?
That's a great question, and I don't have the answer. I wish I had the answer to that.
We've been asking this
But
question for 7 years, 8 years. I mean, because the numbers aren't lined up, you know, in a lot of respects.
No.
All right, we're going to run out of time. I want to get one more quick question in. Jim on the smart building side, Andrew, you more on the digitization, maybe the back end enterprise side. Jim, what's the most innovative thing you've seen in the last 6 to 12 months in a building?
I'm gonna say that what I see as encouraging is around data integration and data models and semantic web on ontologies. That's encouraging me to think actually that we are seeing a more industry-wide, more initiatives to join data together, and that's absolutely critical if we are going to actually achieve more smarter buildings, of course. So that's what's encouraged me. Yeah.
Andrew, what about you? What's just turned your head?
Okay, I think the whole thing about integrating data is one of those things which will run and run and run, and we're continually disappointed at the current level. And the things but there are some very smart people bringing some really good analysis to areas which you didn't think would. The rent collection stats, for example, that's really important in the valuation of buildings. Who knew that collecting rent might actually affect the value of a building? That's the sort of stuff that's coming out now because we've got this data, and you can then extrapolate it, you can work with it, you can play with it, and you can value that tenant and their propensity to pay.
Yeah, when you said data, I really hope you guys can make it to the conference, because we were talking earlier about this Lake Nona project, the smart city in Orlando. They were showing real-time traffic data. I mean, real-time. So you knew before you left your office and went to the Starbucks, it would take you, they've got traffic in the city, totally monitored, real-time, anonymized for privacy reasons. But I've never seen real-time data available to tenants and landlords and developers. It's like, between that and the autonomous vehicles and the drones, I mean, these people are going crazy. All right, guys, we are out of time. We didn't get to supply chain. We didn't get to inflation, all the things that are impacting people's, the way they look at buildings. But we're going to have you back if you don't mind, and maybe every quarter, so you can keep us apprised on what's going on over there. And I really want to thank you for taking the time and allowing our audience to get a little bit of down under. Actually, no, that's Australia. Sorry. All right, guys, have a great day. Thanks again.
Thanks very much.
Thanks very much.
Be well. All right, let's bring Howard on and to do the news. And I got to tell you, we had a little bit of a run around this morning with Howard. Just like our theme last year, resilience, right? In this world now, this morning, not just Howard's City and then Los Angeles and San Diego experienced a major outage. And in this environment, the first thing we think of is, is this the beginning of some cyber attack? So, we pivot. We know how to deal with this stuff. Howard, we searched Starbucks. We called. We got broadband capacity and crowdedness, and Howard's doing the news from Starbucks. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you and say thank you. Way to go. And not much can keep us down.
Thanks, JY. So broadcasting from Starbucks this morning. So I apologize if there's a little background noise. But really, thank you. I want to thank Andrew and Jim. This was really great having them both with us today. It was an important conversation. Good hearing from them both. So I'm going to move on to the news. I'll recap a couple of stories from our weekly briefing. So first story, each year we select our conference chairs for Realcomm and IBCon respectively. And this year's chairs for Realcomm were Cecilia Lee from Urban Edge, Jesse Carrillo, Howard Hughes Corporation, Jeremy Petit from JBG Smith Properties, and for IBCon, Daniel Lambrinos, Quadreal, Victor Sanchez from LinkedIn, and Kathy Farrington from Google. Now, a couple of months ago, we asked them to share their thoughts on the top concerns for 2022 and the trends they see impacting the industry in the not too distant future. And for this week's lead article, we've shared some of these insightful prognostications. It's a great read. Next, I want to shout out to this week's pet partner, AppSpace. It's estimated that 74% of companies plan to implement a hybrid work model. And the IT department spend has risen about 7% in the last year as companies adapt to support hybrid and remote employees. Now, AppSpace platform may provide support for employee check-in, desk booking, company communications, cleaning and safety. Basic, but important stuff. And there's a lot more in the article. So thank you, AppSpace, for your support. Also, in an initiative called Snapdragon Metaverse Fund, Qualcomm just committed $100 million to invest in augmented and virtual reality to jumpstart the metaverse. Now, they're also establishing a grant program for software developers creating virtual and augmented reality content in areas like gaming, health, wellness, media, entertainment, and education. A lot of money going into the metaverse. Interesting to think about what it's going to look like 5 years from now. Next, Bentall Green Oak up in Canada is deploying a new predictive office technology platform aimed at mitigating COVID-19 and other viruses. So they've partnered with an environmental engineering firm called RWDI, whose technology known as Particle One will be rolled out in 200 properties across Canada and the US. Now, this Particle One, it draws on sensor data from the property as well as from external data from local and regional healthcare authorities and applies proprietary algorithms to assess risk of infection in facilities. This technology has been used in mining and aviation. It's now being applied to buildings and public spaces, adaptable to many different pathogens and viruses. Although we're all hoping that the pandemic's behind us, I think this may be one way to stay vigilant and prepared, just in case. Finally, here's a new type of cyber attack that can make phishing nearly undetectable. It's a browser-in-browser. They call it a BID attack. You can simulate a browser window within the browser that you're using, whether it's Chrome or whatever, in order to spoof a legitimate domain where there are third-party single sign-on embedded options like you see when it says sign in with Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple. And when the user does attempt to sign in, the BID attack will create an entirely fabricated secondary browser window. It's not foolproof, though, since the victim will be directed to a phishing domain with a fake authentication window for credential harvesting. So that's where you can catch the fake website if you pay attention to the URL there. So keep your eyes open for this new attack vector. That's it for me today. Back to you, Jim.
You know, I'm gonna use what we went through this morning as a learning opportunity. Our theme last year was resilience, right? And that meant when you get knocked down, you got to stand right back up. The message to building owners, operators, whether it's a landlord or a tenant occupier, you know, we're in uncharted territories with what's going on in Europe and Russia as far as cyber attacks, and our society is now so dependent on electricity and this thing called internet or communications. This gives everybody pause. You know, if you've got a building with hundreds, thousands of people in it, fault tolerance, your business continuity programs, you know, tenants are just not going to listen to the idea that the internet's down. I mean, the onus is going to be on building owners that if you're charging me rent, you should have some backups, some plans that in the event this internet goes down from this provider, that you can flip a switch. So telecommunications is not a nice to have, it's a need to have. And the message I think to building owners is pay attention. Pay attention.
Yeah, no, I'm hearing from a lot of the CIOs and CTOs. Yeah, I mean, they're pulling out their old business continuity notebooks, dusting them off, and really taking a hard look at revising them. You know, there was a big movement, 5-6 years ago, to look at, you know, disaster recovery and business continuity following the floods
People were in those rooms.
and the hurricanes. Yeah. But now more than ever, I think it's important to really pay attention to that.
Well, and then, you know, it's not just the technology side; it's the culture. So your internet, you know, and the whole region is down. You're trying to get ready for Realcomm Live. It was, you know, we said, okay, Howard, you do this. We had 3 of us sitting at desks, calling around, finding broadband, assisting you, so you weren't stressing on your own. That takes a collective team effort, that somebody who says, we're not going to stop. We're smart. We can figure this out. So while you were getting, you know, packed up, ready to go, we were scouting your locations, and lo and behold, you made it. And I want to say thank you.
Yeah, totally. No problem. Thank you for your help on that.
Yeah. But it's a team that basically understands you need to have options. And if everybody tries hard enough, you can solve big problems or little problems. All right. Have a great day. Grab a cup of coffee and enjoy Starbucks.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
All right. Before we wrap, let's hear from our final sponsor. I'm going to come back and give you a little breakdown of what we're going to talk about next week.
Real Foundations is a professional services firm focused on helping companies that develop, own, operate, or invest in real estate make smarter, more profitable decisions. From the building itself to the way it's developed, operated, and capitalized, no firm understands the inner workings of the entire real estate ecosystem as well as Real Foundations. We make real estate run better.
All right, so next week we got a really fun topic. You know, we cover smart buildings, digital districts, smart campuses, touch upon smart cities a little bit, which we're actually going to be talking a lot about at the conference this year. And through all of our travels and our investigations and our conversations, we came up with what we think, or we've been told, is one of the smartest university campuses in the world. The University of Birmingham over in the UK. We're going to stay on the UK theme for another week. Is doing some mind-blowing things as far as the buildings, the infrastructure, the services they're delivering to those buildings on that campus. And we're excited to have Trevor Payne, the Director of Estates at the University of Birmingham. So we're going to go back over the pond for one more week, talk about what we would call a smart city, which is a smart university. And we're excited for that conversation, and we look forward to seeing you next Friday on Realcomm Live. Be well, be safe, and thrive.